r/askreddit. Is mental health issues a valid reason to call in sick to work? Why or why not? If you got sick days, use them for whatever, who cares why? It's valid, sure. Whether your employer agrees is another subject. In my opinion, absolutely. Mental health is as important as physical health. Just call in and say you are sick. Your employer doesn't need to know the reason. And yes, it is totally a valid reason. Absolutely. However, mental health does carry a stigma, and if your higher UPS sense you might be a head case or something, you may be passed over for promotions and stuff for people they deem more mentally stable or whatever the fuck. But most jobs cannot ask you the details on your health. So you can just call out sick, and don't disclose that it's mental in nature. If you have a job that requires proof of illness, might be time to look for a new job. Yikes. I use sick days, and even vacation days, for mental health. How are you going to perform to the best of your ability, if you're not your best? I would argue mental health is as important to take care of than physical health. But I would probably not tell them it's mental shit just because we aren't there as a society yet that recognizes taking care of one's mental health. We are getting there but not quite. Just call in sick, it's nobody's business what your illness is. Sure, but also, you shouldn't need any reason to use your sick time and don't owe your boss any more of an explanation than "I'm not feeling well" unless required by your company. Yes, but I wouldn't tell your employer. Just tell them you are too sick to work. Yes. Imagine desiring killing yourself or in the brink of crying. That person needs help, not work. It is a valid reason, but beware that not all people take mental health seriously, and calling in because of it can lead to some people to start treating you differently, whether that be in a good way or a bad way in comparison to how you were treated before. Some employers may even cut your hours because of this as well, because in their eyes you just didn't want to work. It depends. If you seriously need it, yes, it's fine. If you have leftover sick days and using it as a reason, you're just adding to stigma that mental health isn't a real issue. I've taken mental health days when I needed them without repercussions because I was honest with my boss on why. And everyone else on the team and company just got the standard "I'm out sick." Sick days are for when you are sick, and if you use them, responsible people won't judge. In my scenery I had weeks of sick time and took one day and actually saw a therapist during my time off. Some thoughts from a guy who has managed a lot of people. From a practical perspective, what's valid in the workplace has much to do with your relationships with coworkers and managers. A person who is generally productive and has good relationships will get a lot more leeway on things like mental health days than someone who's not productive and engages in conflict. You'll have a lot more support from colleagues when you're going through tough times if you spend time, in advance, cultivating good relationships and a good reputation. Be honest with yourself on whether your choice of careers aligns with the degree of stress, both professional and personal, you're able to handle. I've known a lot of people who've chosen careers paths that are inherently more stressful and hectic than they're able to handle or don't align well with their personal responsibilities. Be honest with yourself on whether you're truly cut out for working in a given field, or at a given company, in a given role, or for a given person. Of course, many people don't have a choice on what job that they do, but if you do, try to find one that aligns with your own personal comfort level. Keep your expectations balanced. You absolutely do have the right to expect reasonable accommodations for your mental health and stress levels at work. The flip side of that is that your employer does have the right to expect that certain roles are filled by people who have the capacity to put up with a degree of consistent stress. If you attend too little to your mental health, you'll burn out and your career will stall. However, if you can't manage yourself through a certain amount of stressful situations, your career will likely stall too. Yes, but you don't need to explain why you're taking a sick day. You earned it and are free to use it whenever. Without a doubt, yes. I'm bipolar. That is a medically diagnosed, chronic condition that affects my daily life. No difference between calling out for a mental health day or calling out for throwing up. I mean, it's covered under FMLA as a valid reason, so I don't see why not. I mean, I've left work early some days because of anxiety, trademark. Just like physical wellness, you're not going to do your best work or your most effective self if you're mentally struggling. Ignoring that could lead to more work being missed and her productivity even more. I mean, obviously there's a millions more personable and relatable reasons, but that's a very valid one for why an employer would want their employees to use their sick time where they need it, including for mental health days. I always use healthcare as an example for this. If you're not in the right headspace to be there, then how can you realistically be expected to look after patients? If you had the flu, you'd have to go home and take care of yourself. Why wouldn't you do the same with, say for example, a depressive episode? Absolutely. I wouldn't specifically point it out, though. Calling out for mental health day is kind of like calling out with diabetes. Your employer will worry that you can't manage your disease. And don't be the person who regularly calls out of work for any reason. Whether it's mental health or frequent diarrhea, nobody likes having a staff member who doesn't show up to work and do the job they're being paid to do. Yes. No question, yes. I am a manager. I have left the office and gone to a doctor for mental health reasons. When someone on my team says they need to leave, I ask if it is regular personal time, bereavement time, civic duty time, election time, health time, or health time that they may need greater than 3 days for to maintain FMLA compliance. Beyond that, I've got no more questions. I wouldn't know if you had a tummy ache, or a psychotic episode unless you decided to tell me. It's not my business. In most of the developed world, yes. In the US, most employers are going to tell you no. I have PTSD and my therapist would tell me no. It's like having a stained muscle. Just take it easy and you'll make it though. Sick days are for when you're incapacitated or contagious. If you're so bad that you cannot function, then call in, but if you can work you should at least try. You can always take a half day if you can't make it. As an employer I could care less about the reason you provide when you call off a shift. I don't need an excuse and a token cough. I just need a warning, preferably 2 hours. What I do care about is that you do not call off excessively or that you don't call off every Friday/Monday. I don't track excuses. I track numbers and patterns. Yes. Tell your employer you're taking a personal/sick day. If they ask why and you're uncomfortable telling them, just say you'd rather not say. My employers would say absolutely fucking not. Yeah, I'd say they're valid. But the problem with bad mental health is it often recur a lot more often than a common cold. So for the most part personally I just suck it up. But if there's one morning where you just know it isn't happening, there's no shame in taking that day off. Really, I can't think of a better reason. There is no way I can be productive if I am having a mental crisis. I called in sick years back when I had a wicked panic attack, like the kind people mistake for a heart attack and end up going to the hospital for. Yet it's okay to call in sick, but don't use it as an excuse. If you're ready to work, then go ahead. Illness is both physical and mental, which you can argue mental is also physical considering it's regarding your brain. Big difference between, I don't feel like going to work and I can't perform my professional obligations and need rest. Have you been diagnosed? Within reason. If you need a day, or some amount of time that wouldn't materially affect your performance, you can't expect an employer to allow you to call in frequently, especially if it's often around your days off or during particularly busy periods. Some people would take advantage, employers and employees. There need to be mutual respect. A hangover is a valid excuse in my book. Well, depends. If you're having mental episode, then yes. If you're sad or a bit depressed, no. Also depends on how depressed, lol. It's valid, but if you have a horrible boss it might not work. Yes, everyone here. No, minus 99% of bosses. If you work for a big company it shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't be a problem at all, but that's the sad thing. Plus you need to be able to afford to go off, lol. I had 5 weeks off, I needed more but couldn't afford to have more time off, therefore not fully recovering, which was very shit, but what can you do? Face with rolling eyes. Yes. You can be in a position mentally where you are unable to work, not unlike how you can physically be too ill to work. It is. I'd rather just stay home vs going and dealing with a client that is particularly mentally taxing, since that could cause you to have a breakdown that may not end well for your professional career. That being said, it's smarter to classify it as a sick day vs telling your boss that it's specifically mental health related. There is a negative stigma tied to mental health, and it's possible that your boss could leverage that as an excuse to fire you, i.e. they aren't mentally stable to perform this job. No. If you think your mentality is less than normal, just go to work and be distracted and make some money. Are you honestly going to do anything by staying home one day that is really going to improve yourself? Most likely you will either check out, distract yourself with media, or dwell on whatever it is that's affecting you. If someone tells me that they called out because they needed a mental health day, I will perceive them differently. And if I am the boss or the owner, it instantly tells me that I cannot rely on them. Life is challenging, but the answer to whatever is affecting you mentally is not to avoid it. There are lots of people with way worse problems than yourself who face each day with courage and positivity and dignity. The short answer is grow up.